Welcome back to Flint Creek Transport. My name is Justin. This video is going to be a little bit about emissions. So this truck right here is what we would call a glider. This truck is a 2016 Kenworth W900. And when I say a glider, it means that it has a older engine in. It's a new truck, new frame. This truck, like I said, was built in 2016. In 2016, technically, there were supposed to be emissions. And a glider, you can tell by the VIN, there's GGG in the VIN, actually 4 Gs. And that would be a true glider. So what the manufacturer would do, it was Kenworth, Peterbilt, Western Star, Freightliner, I think, and maybe one or two others, but they would build a rolling glider or a rolling chassis. A lot of them would do your front axle, your back axles, frame, cab, everything but the engine and transmission. And that was what they would call a glider. And then you would put your own pre-emission engine in. So they would take, you know, an old truck, say like a 2000 model, like that truck over there is a 1999 or a 2000 right in there. And they would take a truck like that, take it off the road, take that engine out and put it into a glider. So you could pick these up for typically, you know, around 100 grand back in the day, 110. That was sometimes like even less. I think it was in 2014 maybe that Kenworth started building gliders, 2013, somewhere in there. And then Peterbilt was actually a lot earlier than that. Back, I think 2010, they were building gliders. So the reason I want to touch on this though is that America, or United States, was one of the first to adapt some of this, and I would say Canada, like North America. So they were some of the first to adapt the emissions, and then they started phasing out these gliders. So I think 2019, 2020, somewhere in there, they did not build gliders anymore. So phasing them out. Now everything that you buy or anything new has to be an emission engine, which you're kind of stuck with either a X15 Cummins or a Cummins engine, or a PACCAR if you're going to go with any Peterbilt or Kenworth. But did you know that Cummins is still building an X15 that is pre-emission? That's right, X15 pre-emission. So I have nephews in Guatemala, and I can post a link to one of those videos up above. I have been down to Guatemala, it's been like 2 years or so, but they had just ordered some Kenworth T880s for their feed mill that they have, and they were X15s with pre-emission or like no emissions on the X15. And what's interesting, yeah, all these other countries have can get pre-emission engines. Now they're starting to, I think Guatemala is starting to crack down on, or starting to put more emissions on, or I'm not sure. I don't know all the details, but X15 pre-emission. And I was poking around. I'm always truck shopping, you say, or I kind of keep an eye on the market, right? And I was looking for some trucks, and I found some X15 pre-emission. Okay. They're not in they're in the United States right now, but they are only available for import or for export. And I'll show you guys those trucks in a minute. It is very frustrating to me because the emission engines, like we've had several emission engines. In 2008, we had a truck with an emission engine, which was a total failure. And then again in 2016, 2015 maybe, I think is when we got it. We had a T680 with a Cummins ISX, and then in 2019, those trucks showed up in 2018. They were 2019 trucks, but we had 3 Kenworth W900s, all emission engines. And I would say the last 3 were the better of the 3, or of all the trucks, those X15 Performance Series, but they were still, like, we still had some with issues. So I got rid of all them. We went back, pretty much our whole fleet is gliders, except, well, we either have pre-emission engines or gliders. A lot of our trucks are either, yeah, 97, 98, 99, 2000, somewhere in there. We have a couple early 2000s. We still run E-log in those, but it's just, we're trying to get around the emission part of it. And there's going to come a time when, you know what, I won't be able to do that. And I'll just end up getting emission engine trucks. It was kind of frustrating to me because the trucks, you go and buy them for, especially the prices of the new ones were elevated so much. I just felt like it's not worth that much depreciation. I got plenty of other equipment to buy, and I've been buying new trailers, buying new other stuff, but just kind of buying glider trucks. So emissions has always been frustrating to me because it doesn't make sense. And when something doesn't make sense, you know, that's where, like, I don't know, my type is like, I get frustrated. And the reason I say it doesn't make sense is, like, in our application, right? I understand if you're a freight truck going down up and down the road, you can idle, you know, you can be at that perfect fuel economy range, and, you know, is the engine's designed to just sit there and purr away at 1200 RPM, you know, blah, 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 going coast to coast or going, you know, halfway across the country. But we're hauling heavy, you know, we're a lot different application, and emission engines don't work that well in our application. I mean, they do work, but, you know, most of the time we just, you know, we'll swap them out at 400,000 or 500,000 miles. And that's eventually what we're going to have to start doing, is just buying trucks, swapping them out. But when you have to have a system, such an expensive system, for one, it costs a lot of money. And then the other thing is you get a lot of premature engine failure. So these trucks, we still rebuild our CAT engines, and, you know, I'm going to do a video on some of the engines that we rebuilt this year, but we still have to rebuild the CAT engines. They don't last forever. They last a very long time, and the reliability wise, they last much better than an X15. But with the emission system on nowadays and all the sensors and all that, you just don't get very good reliability. And when I have a truck down, it's really hard for me to go to Ryder and say, I need to rent a truck because I have overweight permits and I have a wet line. And those two things really, really hinder me from ever renting a truck. I always have to have spare trucks. So I don't want to have a $200,000 truck sitting here. I like to have, you know, the trucks that I do have invested, I like to keep them going. And usually, like these gliders, when they come in the shop, you know, they're in for half a day and back out the door. They've been very low maintenance, very good running trucks. In the emission systems, they keep getting tighter and tighter, and you have to add, you know, the DEF fluid. There's a lot of plastic jugs there, by the way. I know you can get totes and things like that. The emission systems do not last that long. You know, you might get 400,000 or 500,000 miles out of them. You can go on Truck Paper and you look at, you know, trucks, Kenworth W900s, right, with 400,000 or 500,000 miles, and you will hardly find one that is past 500,000 miles that has not been rebuilt. Like, that's rare. So it gives you a little idea. Kind of my frustration is, like, to be swapping these trucks out at 400,000 or 500,000 miles, like, it's such a shame, you know. And I feel like we're, you know, the country as a whole, it doesn't make any sense. You know, a truck at 400,000 or 500,000 miles has still got a lot of life left, and instead we should trade it in and let someone else take it. You know, so what a lot of guys are doing at 400,000 or 500,000 miles, they're just simply deleting them. Some guys are deleting them right off the bat. I don't like to do that. So if I'm going to buy a new truck, I'm going to run it with the emission system, unfortunately. And, you know, this truck, the fuel economy is a whole nother thing. You know, this truck will get better fuel economy than the new X15 Performance Series. I don't have to add DEF fluid. Like, it's a whole line of pros versus, you know, these Cummins. It's very frustrating. Then you got to deal with sensors, and our dealer, like, our dealer's an hour away. So we have a problem, we got to go an hour. Our dealer's great, but we got to drive an hour. So all those things really, we got a nice big shop here, we can work on them. And I know we can get guys certified and trained, but that's a whole nother thing for all these newer engines. And they have been, it's not like they've been just reliable. Yeah, for the first, they're always reliable for the first couple 100,000 miles, like 300,000 miles, but then is when they start to have problems. And you start running an emission engine truck up into that 600,000 mile range, you're asking for it. You're pushing it. Now, again, I say, when you get a 455 PACCAR and you're just hauling freight 80,000 pounds cross country or halfway across the country, doing rounds like that, yes, you're going to rack on the miles. But sometimes our trucks, they only get 200 miles a day. And all those miles are hauling heavy. They're pulling hard. They're working hard. And it's a whole lot different. We're putting a whole lot more fuel through the system than a truck, one of those freight trucks. So it's a totally different animal. But let's go in. I want to show you, maybe one of you guys too can figure out how to get one of these X15 engines and get it registered in the United States, because in Florida there is some X15 Performance Series trucks, no emissions that I can tell, no emissions, but they're only available for export, and they would be going to Mexico. And I just want to say, yeah, guys, so even with hauling heavy, all that, we have trucks like these trucks have been built very, very well, and we have trucks that have over 2 million miles on. Truck 107 has over 2 million miles on, and I'm pretty sure truck 119 right around 2. That truck over there is right around 2. We have several trucks over 2 million miles, and they would probably be rebuilt one time, maybe twice, depending. But like I know one truck 119, truck 107, they went about 1.6, 1.7 until they got rebuilt for the first time. And you would never get that out of an X15 Performance Series or Efficiency Series. There's no way. You would have, I would probably say, hundreds of thousands of dollars into emission systems and engine rebuilds to get an X15 to go that far. Now, if you deleted it, it would be probably a little bit different, but that's how crazy this world is coming to. We are not thinking logically. United States is not thinking logically, because we're throwing away so many parts. We're throwing away so many trucks and having to build new ones, all in the name of trying to be more efficient, trying to be greener. Okay, it doesn't work like that. You'd be way better off, instead of building two, just build one and then just keep it for a little bit longer. Have it last a lot longer. I mean, all these trucks that all these big fleets have, where they get deleted and they get sent off to other countries. That's what happens to a lot of them. Or like some of them, like they're not worth hardly anything. So they'll just sit out in a junkyard, and they're really not that old. All right, guys, I'm here in my office. Just wanted to show you. So check this out. This truck right here, 2023 Kenworth T880. This one has an X15 Cummins. So, and it says export only. If you look at some of these pictures, like there is no def tank on there, and no def tank, no fuel tank. Like, you can see that there isn't an emission system on this truck right here. This is the exhaust, or that's the muffler. The exhaust goes right down into the muffler. So, interesting, right? 102,000. Okay. Let's back up and let's look at some of these other trucks, some of the prices. So, here is one in New Mexico for 188,000. Look at that, 188,000. Right? It's spec very similar. Here's another one for 182,000. So here's one for 125. So this is another. Looks like there's 5 of these trucks for export only, and they're down in Florida. And I'd love to know how they even made it into the United States. So maybe if somebody has more details on these trucks, I'd love to know. And if there's any way, like I'm looking for a straight truck, I could put a flatbed and a forklift attachment on. I would love that. That would be awesome. If I could get an X15, if I could get that truck right there, manual transmission, that's the perfect rig. But unfortunately, yeah, export only. Even that 2023, 102,000, I'll cut you a check today, brother. Like, I can't touch those, right? So now we got, the next option is 182.5. We're looking at $80,000 more. 80,000 more, unless you go to this one, which is what, 50 couple. So yeah, that's emission systems. So it gives you an idea. Kind of frustrating. I'm guessing that this could be playing with FET as well. So, and here it says like Euro 3 emissions. All right, so this gives you a little idea what Euro 3 emissions standard was. So back in 2001, obviously would be pre-emission. All right, guys, so I just thought that was super interesting to see the difference, especially the price of emissions that it adds to our trucks here in the United States. But anyway, times change, trucks obviously change, and we're unfortunately forced into emission engines. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one. Peace out.